Hello. Today I would like to do from the Zohar in the Torah Portion Bamidbar, the beginning of the book of Numbers. The Zohar I learned from is the Matok M'Dvash. Let's see which one it is over here. And Matok M'Dvash is a commentary on the Zohar which makes it more user-friendly for me. And so let us begin with the beginning of the Torah portion of Bamidbar. Now I want to say before I begin that I had selected this portion because it's particularly interesting, it's particularly insightful, and also, I feel that it has information that plays into other areas of Kabbalistic understanding. So I think it would be very, very good. Okay. In order to understand the upcoming discourse of the Zohar, upcoming teaching, we're going to begin with what is written in the writings of the Arizal and the Kutei Torah, Torah Portion Kisisa, and the reason that why it says only by the creation of Adam let us make man in our image, plural, and it doesn't say so by the rest of the creations. By none of the other creations does it say, let us. It says God did, singular. It doesn't say plural. Because the Holy One wanted man to be able to have a grasp of all the worlds and to connect them. He wanted man to have a grasp in all the spiritual worlds of holiness and to grasp them. And therefore the Holy One commanded that all the world should give some bit of themselves to Adam. So the world of Asiya, which is the lowest of the spiritual worlds of holiness, gave Adam the nefesh level of his soul. That's the lowest level of the soul. The nefesh aspect of the soul is what's most associated with biological functioning. The world of Yetzirah, which is the next world up, gave Adam Ruach, which is spirit, that's associated with the personality. The next world up, Bria, gave him a Neshama, that's the soul level, that's associated with analytical thinking. It comes from a world of pure thought. And all of them gave also the spiritual structures in the world that's even higher up, Atzilut, the world of archetypes, the world of nearness to God, world of emanations, gave Adam also various portions. He got a nefesh level that's special from Atzilus. He got a ruach level that's special from Atzilus. And he got a neshama level that's special from Atzilus. And then a chaya level as well. That's even a higher soul. That's an intuitive soul level. And therefore it says in plural, let us make man, because God was speaking to all the worlds when he created Adam, and he said, all the worlds, let us together make man. We're going to let's give man a sampling of each of you so that he will be like a pillar of light running through all of you. He's going to be like a ladder of light. So, and God also consulted with all the spiritual structures, and they gave willingly of themselves to Adam. And therefore, when Adam sinned, he ruined all the spiritual worlds. All the spiritual worlds suffered from it. And all of them, and all of them, and actually not only when Adam did, but when any human being sins, he ruins all the spiritual worlds because it's all connected. It's one connected flow, and all the spiritual worlds also beg compassion for man if man sins, and of course, if a person does what's right in the world, does good in the world, then all the worlds rejoice in him. So everyone, and that's an introduction from the Arizal. So in short, what this says is that all the universes, all the spiritual universes gave a piece of themselves. When these spiritual universes, realms of reality, one above the other, reaching from the earthly realm like a ladder all the way up to the infinite light, and then downward. So all of them gave from themselves to make man, and man is like a stream of light going through all of that. So that's just an introduction. Now the Zohar begins. And I'm going to read from Hebrew, translate to English. I'm going to try to minimize the amount of Hebrew I read, but sometimes that's just how I flow. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe b'midbar Sinai b'oil moed. And God spoke to Moses in the Sinai desert in the tent of meeting at the first day of the second month, which is the first day of the Hebrew month of Iyar. Iyar is the month we're in right now. In order to explain this verse, Rabbi Abba opened up and began to explain what's written. Vayivra Elokim es ha'adam b'tzalmo, and God created man in his image, and in the image of God he created him. Male and female he created both of them. Haikra itmar, and this verse we already explained what it means. Now we're going to explain it in another way. There's multiple explanations for each verse in the Torah. Techazeh, come and see. B'shatad barakut shebrichu la'adam, when the Holy One created the first man, shehu haya tachlis habriya, he was the purpose of all of creation, to unify all the worlds and to lahasigosam, and to be a conduit for them, to reach them, to understand them. Avad le b'diuka iloi v'satoi. He made man, meaning Adam. Actually, it's Adam and Eve together, because Adam and Eve were one combined unit at this time when they were first made. He made them in the form of the upper worlds, and therefore all the structures of the highest of worlds, Atzilus, gave portions to his soul from themselves. And then he made them in the form of the lower worlds, which is the worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. They also gave portions from their soul to him. So, the worlds themselves have souls. Everything has a soul. Everything is ensouled. Everything is alive with a soul. And the worlds themselves gave from their soul to samplings of their soul to Adam, and or you might say at this point, to the combined unit of Adam and Eve. So Adam was like a live wire. He included all of it. He included all the aspects of the souls from all the worlds, which ended up being the 600,000 general souls that left Egypt. So basically, Adam, Eve as a unit were a collective soul of all humanity. All the souls of all humanity were in them. This is why what they did in the garden affected us all till today. So, but all of humanity was with them, was part of their soul. And it happens to be that the source souls of all humanity were the souls that were enslaved in Egypt and tortured in Egypt and overworked in Egypt, and that was to purify them. And these source souls were part of Adam and Eve's soul complex as well. V'haven nehoire nahir b'saifa alma ad saifa alma, and his light would shine from the end of the world to the end of the world. This means vertically. as not just horizontally as you would think. Okay, from the one end of the world to the other, people think horizontally. It's a natural way to think of it. It means vertically. It means from the highest worlds to the lowest worlds. It streamed through, you might say, like an axis through all the worlds. And all the creatures, all the worlds. All the creatures feared Adam. Not fear in the sense of what's it called? In a selfish way. I'm getting a selfish, authoritative kind of nasty way. Feared in the sense of stood in awe, stood in reverence, like wow, like shockingly amazed. Kemosha Amru Chazal she'afilu malachei hasharos bikshu loy milefonav kodesh. As our sages said, that even the ministering angels wanted to praise Adam and say holy, 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 just as they say before God. This is how elevated Adam was, that all the creatures stood in reverence and awe of him, and even the angels wanted to praise him. And that is because he had the complete image of God on his face. What it means to be an image of God is a whole subject of itself, but it certainly means to be the creature that is most closely associated with the divine in all of creation. And this is true for all human beings, no matter who you are. You have an image of God. You are created in the image of God. And even though the companions explain this verse, we have to look at this verse clearly to mine it for further information. Because it's written, Vayivra Elokim es ha'odam b'tzalmo, b'tzelem Elokim bara oisai. That God created man in his image, and in his image of God he created him. Doesn't seem like too much economy of words over here. He's repeating himself just in a different order. Vishoel, and so the Zohar asks, Kivan de Amar b'tzalmo, since it says in his image, My b'tzelem Elokim bara oisai. What does it mean that in the image of God he created him? Why does it say it twice? The Torah is always concerned with economy of words. So why does the Torah state it twice? Umeishiv elevade trein dargin dechlilin dachar v'nukva. But certainly, B'tzalmo and B'tzelem Elokim referred to two different levels of being in God's image. There's a male version of it and a female version of it. And they both think, that's why the verse ends, male and female, he created them. Because one refers to male, one refers to male, where it says that God created Adam in his image. You could take the word, his image, B'tzalmo, and break it into the words B'tzelem Vav. Vav is the masculine letter in God's name, one of the masculine letters actually, and because it is a masculine letter in God's name, therefore it's B'tzelem Vav. He's created in the male image. V'chad le'nukva, and when it's written B'tzelem Elokim bara oisai, in the image of God he created him, that is and that's the female version of the tzelem, of the image of God, which is, of course, the name Elokim is a feminine name. We'll begin kach lefi she'ev shtei madreis, since they are two levels. Just as you have the cosmic couple in the world of Atzilus, the highest of the spiritual worlds that are discussed in this immediate section. In the world of emanations, just so you have the cosmic couple referred to in Kabbalistic languages, Ze'er Anpin and Nukva. Ze'er Anpin the male, Nukva the female. So too you have in the world, you have among humanity, you have Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve below. Du Partzuf and the Havavadai, they were two visages that were created. Saifa Dikra Ochiach, and the end of the verse points this out. That's why it says, Dichsiv Zohar Nekeva Bara Oisam. I'm sorry, it's not created him, he created them. Male and female, he created them. No, actually, I did say created them before. Okay. Va'omar Od, and its further says, Dechalul have Mitzrain Sitrin, and of course Adam included two sides, because he also had an inner female. Va'aval gav de nukva achidas besitroi, even though the female he had a female on his side, because he was meaning that he was built male and female originally, but still even the male side of Adam had a female side. Amnam hahu nami kalilis misrein citrin, he himself included two sides. So obviously the male side that was gonna become the Adam as we know him, he included in him a male and female. And as you would expect, lemehevish shalom b'chula, and so that he should be complete in all his aspects, because and conversely, for the sake of this completion, Eve also, and the part of the unit that would later divide into Adam and Eve, the part that's called Eve, later become Eve, also had an inner male side. And because otherwise there is no completion. So until today, but even biologists could tell you that every male has some female and every female has some male. It's a spectrum. But, obviously there are, just because it's a spectrum doesn't mean that there aren't people that are definite male and people that are definitely female. It's just, it's just a question that everyone has a little of the other for the sake of balance, And Adam would, being that at this point he was a hugely spiritual being. I mean, his soul reached up to the highest reaches, and he was able to gaze at the upper wisdom when it came to spiritual matters, and to lower wisdom when it came to natural matters. Understand how each one's connected to each one. V'kivan sherosh shehayu ba'atzilus v'haya b'koyach lahamshich aratzich ad soif ha'olamos, because he was able to that point, because his head was in the world of Atzilus, rosh shehayu ba'atzilus, his head was in Atzilus, was in the highest of worlds, and then he would bring down the light from Atzilus all the way stream it down through the worlds. Remember, he was a live wire through all the worlds. So his head was at the highest of worlds. He would bring down the light, kind of like, you have a thought in your mind and you bring it into action in the world. But his mind was in the highest of the worlds. So he'd bring down light from the highest of the world and bring it to fruition, into action in the lowest of worlds. V'kevan, the sarach, and once he sinned, ismatu partzuf, and then then the upper visages, the upper spiritual structures became diminished. So until the point where when the male and female of the upper cosmic realm of Atzilus had descended below, and to the point what's it called, that, it was uncomparable to the way it used to be. And also he brought down in level the worlds of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, the other realms, into realms of separation. And L'chein b'chochmosta istakelis mine, and therefore the wisdom of the world of Atzilus, which his mind used to access, had slipped away from him. And he was only able to look at physical matters. He was only able to, be concerned with things that were of bodily concern. And after he sinned, he gave birth to children from the upper realms and the lower realms. The Hainu Hevel, that's Hevel, Abel, called in English. He was from the upper realms. He had a very holy soul. And Cain, known as Cain in English, from the lower realms. He had a soul that wasn't so from such a high realm. Didn't mean that he didn't have a fair chance of free choice. It just meant that he had a unique challenge. And of course, they didn't coexist to settle the world. They didn't co-settle the world. Abel was killed by Cain in that sad story, and Cain's descendants died out in the flood. They passed away in the flood. Until he had a son, through which the world was set up in firm foundation, and that was his son Shes, in English known as Seth. So and that's what his name means, to place. So with him the world was placed and founded. And Noach, or Noah in English, came from Shes. And of course, being that this is pretty late on in the Zohar, we're already in the book of Numbers, we already went through Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus, so what he's saying is the companions already explained this, meaning it was discussed in the past. I mean, these stories anyways were in the past. If you look in this, if you look even in the Pentateuch, let alone in the Zohar. Vim kol da, and with all this that Shes was born, aval amatata, but the lower world, which is hinted at by the Sfira of Malchus, God's kingdom, lo ishtalim, was incomplete because of the sin of Adam. The lo hava shalim, and it did not, and even the next generation didn't complete it because they further blemished it because by the generation of Enosh introduced idolatry into the world. The Rambam, the Maimonides, goes into what had happened, what was the slow devolution which led to idolatry. And this was the generation that began idolatry. Until then, everyone was perfectly monotheistic, and Enosh introduced idolatry. And we didn't find that the world stayed in its established form because of what the generation of the flood did. So what Adam did, what the generation of Enosh did, and then what the generation of the flood did, really, destroyed the world and unsettled the world. Ad osa Avram is kayim alma, until Avraham, known in English as Abraham, came on the scene and the world was established. Because immediately when he was born, there was a great fixing of the world. And it explains that certain spiritual revelations happened just by his birth, let alone by what he did afterwards. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov says that when a baby is born, the blessings that come to let this baby later do his eventual life mission is also comes into the world. So with Abraham's birth, all the blessings that were necessary for him to do his life work also came into the world. So the world already felt that blessing. Ad Avram ishtakach bei, until Abraham Abraham was founded in the world, and he grew and he did a circumcision, and then even more spiritual light came into the world, into himself and into the world through his act of circumcision. V'achad be'mimina, and he grabbed the world by the right side, meaning right side is always a symbol of chesed, kindness. He grabbed the world by the side of kindness. He introduced a level of God's kindness into the world through doing kindness himself, through having guests, through entertaining people, through caring for people. And this, by his acts of free kindness, he introduced kindness, God's kindness, to reach into the world. And therefore the events in the world were kinder in his day. He's like compared to someone who grabs by the right arm someone who's falling. The world was falling, and he grabbed it by the right arm, and with his right arm. Then Achar Kach Osa Yitzchak. Afterwards, Isaac, known in English, Isaac came to the world. His son Yitzchak in Hebrew. Va'achid biyodei ba'alma bismola. He grabbed the world from the left side. He was the opposite of his father. His father was into serving God through kindness. He was into serving God through discipline and service. One was more of a love orientation. The others are more of a reverential fear orientation, reverence. Again, not scary, spooky stuff. We mean mature fear that's awe, that's shocking, like wow. And through this, he aroused the world to fear God. And through this, the world existed further, because you can't just have endless free love. You also have to have balanced with a certain amount of fear. Think about it. I mean, if let's say you love your spouse, but you also know there are boundaries. You don't want to, if you trip those boundaries, you can ruin the relationship. So, too, healthy boundaries are important to contain a relationship in the right way. And that's what Yitzchak introduced. V'kevan the Osa Yaakov, and when Yitzchak had a son named Yaakov, Jacob in English, Achid bem se'isa begufa, he represents the middle column. Middle column always represents balance. It's balance between the right side and the left side, torso area, it's middle. And that's what he represents. He takes aspects of kindness, blends it with aspects of fear, of gevura, of discipline, kindness and discipline. He blends it, and to have a compassionate, maturely compassionate approach. And you have to understand, as our ancestors were doing this, as the patriarchs were doing this and living this way, the parallels were going on in the upper spiritual worlds. It wasn't just a happening down here. It was happening up there in cooperation, collaboration. It was an entire system. V'iskalil b'trein sitrin, and so he combined two sides, the kindness side and the discipline side. V'yiskayim alma v'lohave mismoted, and the world was established, and it wasn't shaky. It wasn't trembling and quivering, and it was steady, because it had both the kindness side and the withholding of kindness in the form of discipline at the right measure. And even so, the world was not complete in its root, And it says in the Matok M'Dvash, Lo yorda hashechina lemata lishkoin betachtoinim. The Shekhinah, God's manifest presence, the experience of God. Remember, there's God and there's the experience of God. They're two separate things, don't confuse them. The experience of God had not yet settled down in the lower worlds. Ad oile tresar shvatim, until Yaakov had the 12 tribes. V'hoya keneged shnei masa malachim shel merkevas hashchina, and these 12 tribes paralleled the 12 angels that surround God's holy chariot. V'shivim nafshin, and also until they themselves had children, with 70 souls that descend to Egypt with Jacob. Remember, at the end of Genesis, it says, toward the end I should say, it says 70 souls descended with Jacob to Egypt, Yaakov to Egypt. And these 70 souls, you might say, were major branches that included some of the 600,000 souls that came out of Egypt. So remember, before we spoke about Adam including 600,000 souls. Well, first those 600,000 are included in 70 souls before they branch out to 600,000. There are major branches and minor branches. V'ishtalim alma, and that's the way the world was set into completion. V'im kol dar lo ishtalim im kol ze adayin lo nishlam ha'olam legamrei. And even with this, the world wasn't entirely complete. Ad kabilu Yisrael eiraisa betura de Sinai, until the Jews accepted the Torah at Mount Sinai, until the Jewish people sat around Mount Sinai, all 12 tribes. It was, you might say, a grand finale of the exodus of Egypt was finally coming to Mount Sinai and hearing the 10 Commandments. Until that happened, it wasn't complete. The world wasn't complete. And then the world was complete. And it was interesting that at that time, Moses could have been the Messiah, and that's it. The first set of tablets, we could have come into Israel. That would have been it. There would have been a messianic era for all of humanity. That's what it means it's complete. It could have been complete if it weren't for the need for a second set of tablets through a certain incident. V'espasmu iloin v'satoin, and the upper realms and the lower realms, they were made beautiful. Bagsa means like spice, like fragrant. The upper realms and lower realms were brought to a state of fragrance. So at this time, when the Jews received the Torah at Mount Sinai, we're soon coming to the holiday of Shavuot, and that's the anniversary of the day we receive the Torah. Every year on Shavuot, there's a new revelation of Torah that comes down, and may we all merit to receive it and to use it in the right way. And thank you for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.